Presiding Officer. I'm delighted to have the opportunity, particularly as a newly elected member, to participate in this afternoon's historic Stage 3 budget debate. It is my view that this is a fair and proportionate budget that balances the imperatives of public spending with the exigencies of supporting economic growth at a time of Brexit-driven uncertainty. The proposals outlined in this budget will both increase resources for local services in totality and increase health spending above inflation. In my constituency of Renfrewshire South, this translates to almost £5 million in additional support for integration authorities and over £1.5 million direct to schools through the Pupil Equity Fund. While St David's Primary in Johnston already benefits from attainment challenging funding, the Pupil Equity Fund provided by this budget means that, to give just a few of the many examples, in Barrhead, both St Mark's and Calabar primaries will each receive in excess of £120,000. Johnston High will receive over £110,000. And Woodlands Primary in Linwood will benefit from almost £150,000. This is real money that will make a real difference to the lives of children and young people in my constituency. And those who vote against this budget tonight are voting against that money going to these schools.
That's right. Neil Findlay.
Does that mean that every time the SNP have voted against a budget in here or in any council chamber, that they're voting against every single thing in that budget? I mean, let's get beyond this childish stuff.
Tom Arthur.
Well, the context in that remark is I hear from the Labour Party calls for increased investment in education. We provide increased investment in education, but what do? They vote against it. So, it does answer the question. Now, Presiding Officer, a frustration shared by many of my constituents, particularly in Howwood and Lochwinnoch, has been the historic lack of access to superfast broadband. On doorstep after doorstep during the election campaign, this government's commitment to provide superfast broadband access to 95% of homes by the end of this year and access to 100% of premises in Scotland by 2021 was warmly received. I know that many of my constituents will join me in welcoming the support provided by this budget to deliver the final phase of the Digital Scotland Superfast Broadband programme and the commencement of the first phase of the Reaching 100% programme. Presiding Officer, whether it be in health, education or digital infrastructure, this is a budget that will deliver for my constituents in Renfrewshire South and deliver for the people of Scotland. This cannot be said, however, about the Tory and Labour proposals. Labour's tax proposition is, in my opinion, unfair, ill-advised and incoherent. It is unfair to ask people on less than £12,000 a year to foot the bill for Tory austerity. It is ill-advised to advocate an increase. It is ill-advised to advocate an increase in the additional rate without regard to the potential behavioural impact and consequent reduction in tax revenue. Well, I'd rather deal in the pragmatic reality than in Labour's clown car economics. And it is incoherent to push for tax increases on the lowest earners in society, while simultaneously implementing council tax freezes across the country on the grounds that so many people are having to tighten their own budgets and, in the worst cases, are struggling to provide the basics for their families. Not my words, Presiding Officer, but those of outgoing Labour Renfrewshire Council leader Mark McMillan. And it is incoherence that has characterised Labour's whole approach to this budget process at every level, which has resulted in Labour's politics being viewed by the overwhelming majority of people in Scotland as outdated, misplaced and irrelevant to the needs. Something confirmed yet again by the grotesque chaos of Labour's walkout at Clackmannanshire Council this morning. While Labour would hammer the least affluent in society with tax rises, the Tories want to cut tax for the most affluent at the expense of our public services. Presiding Officer, this budget process has been very revealing about the values and character of the Conservatives, and that it confirms what we've always known, that despite the talk over the past 10 years of rebranding and disbanding and a refreshed membership, it is still the same old Tories. Let me give you one example. East Renfrewshire stand to benefit by over an additional £3 million announced earlier in the budget process. The budget was set last week. Now, what did the Conservatives decide to do? What was their suggestion for how that revenue should be spent? Education? Additional investment in health? No. Their proposition was a 6% council tax cut in the most affluent part, one of the most affluent parts of Scotland. And I think it says all that we need to know about the values of the Conservative Party. For all our talk of being the highest tax part of the UK, the people who stand to benefit from the Conservative proposition are those highest earners, not the people who are most vulnerable and people in most need of support. This budget is a budget that delivers for all of Scotland, and I'm proud to support it.